Welcome to a story not just about wealth, but about meaning. A story not just of numbers, but of faith. This is not a tale of billionaires or stock market tickers. It is a story about something quieter, something older, something that didn't just change the world, it built it. Today, I want to take you on a journey. One that begins in the dust of ancient trade routes, meanders through the golden halls of empires, slips into the vaults of Renaissance bankers, pulses through Wall Street, and vibrates silently in the cloud-like realm of digital code. We're not just talking about money. We're talking about the invention that gave rise to civilization's modern heartbeat. Money isn't just coins. It's not just bills. It's not even just data. Money is one of humanity's greatest inventions, a brilliant, subtle solution to one of our deepest needs. How do we value things we cannot hold? How do we measure trust? And how do we build something that can stretch across borders, generations, and minds? And here's the quiet truth. Someone had to invent it. Not just the coin, not just the bank, but the very concept that something could represent value, agreed upon not by force, but by belief. This person, or people, whoever first shaped the idea of money, should be remembered not as a merchant, but as a visionary, a philosopher of the real world, a silent architect of everything we now call the economy, because money at its core is a story. And that story, when multiplied, when organized, when measured and compared, becomes something we call GDP, gross domestic product. GDP is the pulse of a nation, but money is the blood, and behind both lies a mystery worth exploring. So today, let's travel that road. Let's uncover the value of money, not just as currency, but as culture, as memory, as math. Let's discover how money became the silent foundation for everything from markets to dreams, and how its value became the key to measuring the strength of an entire nation. This is the story of how money came to be, and how it never stopped evolving. Part 1. The origins of money. Before coins and banknotes, before mobile banking apps and cryptocurrency wallets, money wasn't money at all. It was value, agreed upon, exchanged, remembered. Human civilization, long before it had numbers or writing, had something else, needs. And from those needs came a remarkable invention, not a tool of metal or code, but an idea, trade. Imagine a world without money. A farmer grows wheat, but he needs shoes. A shoemaker makes shoes, but needs milk. A shepherd has milk, but wants wheat. The solution was barter. I give you what I have, and you give me what I need. Simple, honest, but also impractical. Barter worked until it didn't. What if the shoemaker doesn't need wheat? What if the milk spoils? What if the wheat harvest is delayed? Barter's flaw was its beauty. It depended entirely on coincidence. Economists call this the double coincidence of wants. And as human society grew, this coincidence became too costly to sustain. So we did what humans do best. We innovated. Shells, salt, cattle, beads. Across the ancient world, people started using objects not for their use, but for their trust. A cow might be valuable, yes, but when used to measure other value, it became something greater, a currency. One of the earliest known forms was cowrie shells, prized for their beauty, durability, and portability. In China, Africa, and the Indian Ocean, these shells were traded like gold because people believed in them. And that's the first quiet truth of money. It's not about metal or paper. It's about belief. When metal arrived, bronze, silver, gold, it didn't just change currency. It changed civilization. Metal coins were harder to fake, easier to store, and could be stamped with a ruler's face, a government seal, a nation's pride. This gave rise to a new kind of trust, centralized trust. Governments and kings began minting coins. Lydia, an ancient kingdom in what is now Turkey, is credited with producing the first true coinage around 600 BC. These weren't just tokens, they were promises. A silver Lydian coin meant something beyond its weight. It was a symbol of shared trust in the system that issued it. From there, The concept of currency spread across Greece, Rome, Persia, and China. Each empire, each culture adapted it, and with money came markets, trade routes, cities, and war. Because money isn't just a medium, it's a motive. Fast forward to paper. Paper money began in Tang Dynasty China around the 7th century, but it wasn't until the Song Dynasty 960 to 1279 that it became widespread. It was revolutionary. Instead of carrying sacks of coins, merchants could carry lightweight notes backed by a trusted authority. Europe was slower to adopt it. Fear and fraud made people skeptical. But by the 17th century, with the rise of banking, paper money made its debut in Sweden and then in England, France, and beyond. Again, the idea wasn't the paper, it was the promise. A note said, "This paper is worth something because we all agree it is." That agreement, it's the foundation of our global economy. And so we reach our first powerful lesson in this journey. Money is a story we all tell together. And the better the story, the stronger the economy. Well, Part 2, the evolution of value. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the world was running on coin and paper. But economies were expanding fast. Trade stretched across continents. Colonies shipped resources to empires. Banking systems became sophisticated. And amid this financial complexity, people needed one thing above all else: trust. Enter the gold standard. The gold standard was simple in principle. Every paper note issued by a government or bank was backed by a specific amount of gold. You could walk into a bank and exchange your currency for that amount. It was money with a promise, and that promise was gold. Why gold? Because gold is rare, durable, divisible, recognizable. It doesn't rust or decay. And for thousands of years, humans have given it symbolic power. The gold standard made money feel real, tangible, grounded. But even this system had flaws. Wars disrupted gold flows. Banks overextended their lending. Economic crises pushed governments to print more money than they had gold for. Eventually, the gold standard started cracking. In 1971, under President Richard Nixon, the U.S. officially ended the gold standard. The dollar, and soon most currencies, became fiat money. Fiat meaning by decree. The government says this has value, and because people trust the government, it does. At first, the world panicked. What's money worth if not gold? But soon, something remarkable happened. Economies didn't collapse. In fact, they grew, because value had already shifted from what money was made of to what it could do. The 20th century brought banks, interest rates, inflation policies, and fiscal strategies. Money became more than notes in a wallet. It became digital entries in ledgers, tools for investment, levers for growth. And with that came GDP, gross domestic product, the total value of all goods and services produced in a country. GDP isn't money, but it's deeply tied to it. A nation's currency strength reflects its productivity, its economy, its innovation. Money then becomes a measure not just of wealth, but of potential. The person who helped pioneer this system, the one who saw that money needed rules, not just gold, was a thinker of enormous vision, John Maynard Keynes. Keynes changed everything. He argued that economies aren't static. They're emotional, psychological, that governments must intervene in times of crisis, not retreat. His ideas shaped modern economic policy and made money a tool for stability, not just transaction. Thanks to this evolution, the world saw immense growth. After World War II, with institutions like the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, global economies became linked. Money crossed borders in seconds. Capital flowed. Investments surged. But inequality also grew. And crises still came. 2008, for example. A housing collapse became a banking crisis, became a global recession. Suddenly we were reminded, money is powerful but also fragile. That's why the story of money can't just be about trust. It must also be about responsibility. Money as a mirror and a tool. If we could hold the concept of money in our hands, not the coins or the cash, but the idea of money itself, it would feel less like a tool and more like a mirror. Because money, at its most honest, reflects who we are. From the barter systems of early humans to the digital currencies of today, every transformation in money has been a reflection of our evolution as a species. Our ambitions, our fears, our imagination. Each shift from shells to gold, from paper to code, was not just about making trade easier. It was about making civilization possible. Money is often misunderstood as something purely economic. But by now, we've seen it's also psychological, cultural, political, and deeply human. It holds within it our shared beliefs, our values, our hopes. It is the medium through which we define worth, not only in goods, but in lives, time, labor, dreams. So where does this leave us today, standing at the edge of a digital, decentralized, and data-driven financial future? It leaves us with responsibility. We've learned across these 6 parts that money is trust. That trust is belief. And belief is built, not granted. Whether we're citizens using a local banknote or programmers writing smart contracts or policymakers deciding inflation targets, we are all participants in this collective fiction that becomes real through action. Money is not neutral. It has consequences. How it is designed shapes who it serves. How it is distributed reveals who has power. How it flows influences what grows and what withers. A society that measures success only in GDP may ignore happiness. One that worships financial profit may forget social progress. If we want a better economy, we must first ask, what do we want money to reward? This is where visionaries, those who design and direct the creation of money, deserve recognition. These are not mere economists. They are architects of trust, people who can foresee the long-term effects of financial frameworks, people who understand not just the logic of value, but the humanity behind it. Think of the early emperors stamping coins to unite their people, the Chinese officials introducing paper notes to expand trade, the gold standard thinkers linking currency to tangible worth, the central bankers navigating a fiat economy with balance and foresight, the cryptographers building decentralized systems to restore financial autonomy. These are all individuals who shaped the operating system of the world. To create a currency is not just to create wealth. It is to create behavior, to write incentives into the code of society. That requires brilliance and restraint, imagination and ethics. It is no exaggeration to say that the creator of money wields one of the most profound tools of civilization. Let us, then, be mindful of what money teaches us. Lesson 1. Money is belief. All currencies, fiat, crypto, local, global, only work because people agree they do. That belief can be anchored in gold, in law, or in code. But the real anchor is trust. Without it, even the strongest currency collapses. Lesson 2. Money is behavior. How we earn it, spend it, save it, invest it. All these choices form the moral backbone of our economy. A market is not just transactions. It is decisions, desires, and consequences expressed in numeric form. Lesson 3. Money is memory. Every dollar spent is a record of choice. Every investment is a signal of value. Money tells a story, not just of the market, but of the moment. It shows us where we've been, and it hints at where we're going. Lesson 4. Money is evolving. From shells to CB to Cs, the history of money is a history of adaptation. We are now entering an era of programmable finance, AI-driven advisory, decentralized economies, and digital identities. This is not the end of money. It is its next chapter. And finally, Lesson 5. Money is opportunity. It can be used to build schools or prisons, fund wars or peace, promote inequality or reduce it. Money is not inherently good or evil. It is a tool. The outcome depends on how it's used and by whom. As we close this exploration, we must resist the urge to think of money as static or simple. It is complex, It is alive, and its greatest transformations are likely still ahead of us. The question for each of us, whether economist, policymaker, developer, entrepreneur, or citizen, is the same. What kind of future do we want our money to build? Do we want it to measure only profit or purpose? Will it accelerate consumption or sustainability? Will it widen gaps or bridge them? Will it be controlled by the few or empowered by the many? The answers are not abstract. They are emerging now. In the startup that creates a blockchain for farmers, in the NGO that uses stablecoins for refugee relief, in the legislator crafting rules for AI finance interactions, in the activist demanding climate-linked currencies, in the central bank studying a digital alternative to cash. All of these actors are telling a new story about money, one where it works for people, not just systems. And so we return to the very first insight. Money is a shared story, one written not in ink or binary but in trust. Every time we believe in it, we extend that story. Every time we use it wisely, we improve it. And every time someone, somewhere, designs it with justice and vision, they become not just a technologist or a policymaker, but a builder of the future. We owe much to these individuals. Their skill is not just technical, but deeply human. They see what money is and what it can become. They know its power, and they wield it not with greed, but with grace. May we all learn from them, and may we remember, money is not the destination. It is the road. Where do we go from here? That's a choice we all share.